They don't come here to attack us because we're rich and we're free. They come and they attack us because we're over there.
We don't need to go populist left or populist right. We don't need to embrace neo-Marxism or neo-fascism, these disastrous movements from the 20th century. Turns out the answer is pretty much our Bill of Rights, our story. Embrace freedom. That's the answer.
And if the LP has a purpose, it's not to put people to sleep. It's to wake them up.
We're here because we love liberty, and we're here because we hate injustice. We are here to save mankind. We are here to fight.
Join us, the Libertarian Party, in perhaps the most exciting, grandest endeavor in history, the restoration of American liberty.
Ideas spread, they can't stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government.
Hello and welcome to episode 80 of Decentralized Revolution, a podcast from the Libertarian Party, Mises Caucus, and Mises PAC. I'm Aaron Harris. I'm your host. I hope you have enjoyed the bonus episodes of the talks from the Take Human Action Bash out in Reno. Finally got those up in audio form on the podcast feed. They've been available over on our YouTube page for a couple of weeks now. And if you weren't there, I really want you to go over and check those out, or just don't skip over those bonus episodes that just downloaded into your feed over the last few days. It was a really special night just to be there and get to see, Maj Toure and Ron Paul at the same table with Zuby, and then me sitting there for a little bit was kind of neat. Just so many great people there, and I really, really appreciate everyone who made the Reno reset happen. I know a lot of you were there. A lot of you just help out on social media. You're active in your Mises Caucus chapter of your state and your state LP. Some of you support the caucus financially, and together we pulled it off. And I'm really proud of everybody, and just amazed that we did what we did. National is killing it, doing a great job. And one of the guys who is a part of that is my guest today, and it's Dave Benner. He's from over in Nashville, so he's a fellow Tennessean. I've known him for a little while now, and just been really impressed with him. And he is on the Twitter feed for LP National. So at LP National on Twitter. Dave is one of the main guys running things, and I know, a couple of weeks ago when Dave got the keys to that everybody immediately saw this great change. I think the Libertarian Twitter woke up and was in such a great mood when the tone of the page started changing. Not that many of the stuff was bad in the past, but just kind of the new attitude, and Dave Benner a part of that. And Dave also is he's a really hardworking guy, and he was elected as regional representative for Region 2 to the Libertarian National Committee. I think there's 8 regions, so the country is split up like that, and each region's state parties select someone to represent them on the I think it's a 17-member LNC board. And so I'm happy to have Dave as my representative on the LNC. And they're doing a great job so far. I think they haven't had their first in-person meeting yet, but that's about to happen. And just one other note, Dave is an author. He's written a couple of books. And he has, in addition to, he's written some for... he's been published at the 10th Amendment Center's website, at the Mises Institute's website, which, of course, the Mises Institute is a entirely different organization from the Mises Caucus, and to get published on there is pretty prestigious, and Dave is among that number. And he's also in the middle of writing, actually it's written, a biography of the great Thomas Paine. And we hit it off at a Mises event several months ago, and I said, what are you doing these days? And he said, oh, well, I'm working on this book. And we hit it off, and we had this great conversation about Thomas Paine. He's like, hey, you know a lot about this guy? I'm like, oh, I've read a little bit. And so it came up that I was an editor. That's my day job. As I like to brag, I helped edit Scott Horton's Enough Already, which is I'm really proud of Scott's work on that, and just humbled that I got to play a part in that. But Dave asked me to do the copy edit, a little more than copy editing, but he doesn't need much work done to what he's written. So I'm working on that now for him. So I just wanted to disclose that I'm doing a little work for Dave, but he's done a whole lot of work for us here at the Mises Caucus and in the Libertarian Party. And I know you're going to enjoy my talk with him. Dave, how are things over in Nashville?
Great, man. It actually stormed today and we lost power, but it's back. It's sunny now again. So
yeah, we had the same thing in Knoxville, and like I was heating up my lunch, and the electricity flickered for like 1 second, and so I had my hot lunch of Taiwanese beef stew. Came through okay, but I was worried there for a second.
Man, you're making me jealous with that talk.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm the one who makes the Taiwanese stuff in our house, even though that's where my wife's parents are from. So one thing, we're both in Tennessee, and it's amazing, and you probably don't get this as much because Nashville is the bigger city. But when I tell people I'm from Knoxville, they always say, oh yeah, I was in Nashville. They think it's like the same thing. I don't know what they hear, but how did you come to be in Nashville and in Tennessee?
Yeah, well, long story. I'm originally from Knoxville, actually, and I only lived there a very small period, but most of my life I have lived in Minnesota and Wisconsin. When I met my wife, she was from Illinois, and I was living in Minneapolis. Neither of us wanted to continue living where we were, and both of us wanted to go somewhere warmer. And I have family in Tennessee, and it's somewhere I always thought that I would end up in. So this is where we are. I love it. I'm a Nashvilleian. Don't sound like one, but I certainly don't have Yankee sensibilities, though.
Yeah,
so.
I with that accent, that's definitely not a Knox County accent, but and it's funny because with all the people moving to Tennessee, there's a very, you do hear the word Yankee a lot. And I'm always quick to point out that, my dad was born in Kentucky, 3 of my grandparents in Eastern Kentucky. And then my grandfather was born right here in Townsend, which is kind of south of Knoxville over by the Smoky Mountain National Park. So you and I both have some claim to be here, and we're not carpetbaggers.
Yeah, that's right. I'll take that, man. I'll take that.
So how did you, I always kind of end up asking people kind of their libertarian journey, but it takes a long way. Something has to happen to the point where you're insane enough to want to be on the LNC. So it's a tough job. It's been tough in the past because of the drama. I hope things are going to be a lot better now with people with a different sort of goal and temperament, I think. But still, it's talk about what that job is, and because it's not just like showing up on a Zoom meeting once in a while, right?
Yeah, that's right. So to be an LNC rep, and I represent Region 2, which is Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee, we're to kind of embody the membership's view of the respective states in our regions in the national party. So we're there to represent the state memberships there. So what we do is we vote on resolutions, as an example right now, there's a pending resolution on the business list about Yemen. We're condemning kind of the atrocious blockade that the U.S. has imposed there on behalf of the Saudis. Scott Horton's talked a lot about that. It's a big issue that's kind of been swept under the rug by the regime. So that's something that we're working on. We'll also work on, party direction, organization, management. We allocate and decide on voting for specific funding endeavors that the party does. We alter kind of internal processes of our policy manual. That kind of gets into things some people would consider more boring, but that is there. We have say in when it comes to staff hires and stuff like that. So there's a lot to it, but it's basically about, when it comes down to it, representing our region in the national party. The reason that I primarily ran because I didn't like the direction of the national party. When I campaigned for this, I said that, the previous leadership was feckless and cowardly when it came to the COVID regime. And I still thought they were when it came to arming Eastern Europe and getting involved in a proxy war against Russia. So there were several things that I thought that the party needed to take a bigger step forward to really be against some of these things.
Yeah, it's I've heard a lot of people, from guys like Tim Pool. There was another clip that the XCOM of the Mises Caucus we just shared. It was these lawyers who were like giving commentary on the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, and I guess a Mises Caucus member contributed in their super chat or something, so they had to like call out the Mises LP Mises Caucus, and they actually kind of knew a little bit about the LP, and they were like, yeah, it would be great if the Libertarian Party was libertarian, and they kind of had some comments about Gary Johnson, and it's funny to see how some people have like misconceptions about the LP, that they're like, oh, didn't they nominate Howard Stern for president once? And no, that was the New York party for governor, and that was a disaster. But like I think there is a sense that, people who kind of know what the word libertarian means have kind of been disappointed or underwhelmed by what's been going on. And not that it's been all bad, but like what sense did you get any pushback from people of, hey, things are kind of okay? I mean, did you hear that from anybody in running on that sort of platform of wanting to be sort of a bolder national LP?
Not really. I mean, to some extent, yeah, but most of the conversation intra-party and intra-region has been really respectful. I mean, even people that kind of have different dispositions about like priorities and party strategy and stuff, a lot of them I'm real close to and work close to. So my concern isn't doing battle with those people. It's taking the fight to the state. So most of those conversations have actually been real respectful. The guy that ran against me, his name's Omar Requero, great guy. I think he's a really good hard worker. He's been on many national committees and such. And, we just didn't come to those qualms to be as animated as you might see in some places.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of been the dynamic with the Mises Caucus over the last couple of years, is the points of contention and the New Hampshires and Massachusetts dramas and stuff like that have gotten a lot of attention, but in a lot of places, the people who have been running the state parties have been like, oh, great, actual libertarians who also want to do the things we want to do, and they show up and they work. And so I think overwhelmingly, I think that, and sometimes we, and even myself and others with the board, like, because we do have to address the controversy, but like, I think it has been remarkable. And out in Reno, there was just a overwhelmingly positive vibe. And like Omar, like he almost convinced me to vote for him, right? Like he seemed like a really great guy. And like, if I didn't know Dave, I would have been just as comfortable with him. So I'm really happy of how things turned out. And I hope that the new LNC sort of proves themselves to, all the kind of non-insane people who are in and around the LP, that, hey, yeah, we can do some things differently and really make a difference. And you mentioned the COVID thing, like how disheartening was that? What were the biggest disappointments that how did they play out? What did you see and not see that the LP, again, it's got libertarian in the name. It's the most important thing going on. And what they said was what it was. So what was it in your opinion?
It was mostly not what they said. It's what they omitted. They acted like we weren't in a total societal upheaval until at least a year after. I don't think it was a full year until the party sent any email opposed in any way to any kind of lockdown measures, mask mandates, vaccine passports, etc. And I just think it was more like almost pretending like it didn't exist more than it was saying the wrong things about it. Although there were some tweets and stuff that basically recommended people wear masks and stuff. And I just don't think the party should have taken a stance on that.
Yeah.
So it was more of what was not said. But I mean, and even the presidential candidate, I thought Joe was a pretty good candidate. She wasn't my first choice. I was a big Hornberger supporter. I thought she had the right senses on many issues, but she didn't make that at the forefront of her campaign either. And I thought that is a serious missed opportunity in a world of madness that was crumbling before our eyes, business being closed, people being driven to the brink of depression and suicide for this. Yeah. And, just lockdowns and closures. It didn't make sense to not take a stand against it.
Right. And when you're a third party, or as I like to call them, challenger parties, because we want to be one of the top two, and I think that that's possible in the mid, not the long term or the short term, but kind of the middle term, that could happen. But you don't get there by giving the same opinion that every other outlet, every other party, every other talking head gives, but with just a little bit of like, hey, we're still for freedom thrown in at the end. The basic marketing of, you have to show why you're different. And again, why are people busting their humps to get signatures and giving money and all this if we're not going to call out our differences? That's always really just mystified me.
Totally. And like the libertarians that weren't in the party, those are our low hanging fruit on this issue. Yeah. Same with all sorts of thousands of politically indisposed that were kind of forced to the sidelines because they didn't like either the GOP or the DNC. And we really had a historical opportunity to engage with them. They lost it, but we're looking forward. This new LNC and the new leadership, I think, will make the important issues priority again.
And I think that one of those things is obviously inflation. And, again, just like in 2008, the libertarians, the Austrian economists have been breaking this down, for really the last 50 plus years, but certainly over the last 20 years. We know why this is happening. We know why the boom bust is happening. And like literally everybody, that's all they can talk about, normies and hardcore libertarians. And so to me, this is another great opportunity because, I really think this is going to be another 2008 and maybe even worse. So like what can the LP do to get out in front of this and use this time of pain caused by the regime to offer people some hope, I guess?
Yeah, just to trace those personal struggles that regular people are going through to the evils of the Federal Reserve. It's something that libertarians should be proud to stand on as a platform. Ron Paul did it very successfully. We can do it again successfully today, just by tracing the maladies that they're experiencing to really a tangible policy that would improve their lives, to eliminate legal tender and encourage crypto trading, bartering, and getting ourselves off of this phony fiat money standard that's been forced upon us.
Talk about what legal tender. Sometimes people mention that and it kind of gets glossed over, but what do you mean by that, and how can that help?
Yeah, legal tender is basically any laws that require certain kind of merchants or firms to take a certain form of money. And the legal tender laws essentially force all operational businesses to take the US dollar, the rapidly depreciating, debased US dollar. So the idea there is, if we abolish legal tender laws, any kind of business could accept whatever payment, they want.
Right. And I think it's also the issue of like legal contracts that you can't, in most states right now, you would have a problem by, putting your considerations, listing them as gold or Bitcoin or British pounds. You couldn't do that. Even if you wanted to, it wouldn't fly. So to be able to have those contracts and arrangements and not force anybody to do anything would bring some competition into the money provision side of things.
Certainly. And it's a missed part of this. Sometimes we talk a lot about ending the Fed and, eliminating the IRS, but legal tender and, abolishing those laws are really important too.
Yeah. So let's talk again about what the LP, and just to distinguish, sometimes we might say LNC or LP. So the LNC is the Libertarian National Committee, which is basically the board that runs the LP, right?
Yeah, that's correct. There is kind of a committee within the committee of the LNC too, which is a little confusing probably to viewers, but there's an executive committee within the LNC that's composed of like a subsection of those people that can make certain decisions when the rest of the LNC can't convene. The rest of the yeah, go ahead.
Let's break that down, because a lot of people were very happy that Angela McArdle is in there, but she's not a dictator, even though she would be a pretty good one, I think. But you know what I mean. So like how and some people I've seen a couple stray comments on social media of like, oh, the LP still hasn't changed this or whatever. So, but it's not that simple all the time. So break down who actually is making decisions and how all of those people have to work together.
Yeah, I mean, this might be a surprise to some people too, but the chair is mostly a facilitator. Angela doesn't even vote as chair unless it's a tie. Usually the chair doesn't vote. So a lot of what she does is managing staff, trying to orient the direction of the party, kind of initiative-based stuff. And a lot of the party work that takes place on a national level is taken care of on committees like the Ballot Access Committee and the Candidate Support Committee, the Communications Committee. That's what I'm part of. There probably will be a new communications director because the current one has stepped down. The executive director handles a lot of things. The current one has stepped down. He will be replaced soon too. So a lot of the work takes place by the staff and the committees, and LNC members are there to steer a lot of it. But a lot of the work gets done on the committees, which a lot of us are part of too.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, so different people on the LNC also have roles on these committees. And so what does the XCOM actually, what do they do apart from the larger LNC?
I'm actually not super well studied on this, but they have the ability to make certain decisions for the party in the event that there isn't enough time to call kind of the rest of the LNC to be there. I don't want to say anything that's incorrect,
Sure.
but there are certain decisions that they can make outside of the authority of the entire LNC, though the entire LNC can overrule them if it comes to it. So I can't really give specifics yet, but I need to research that a little.
Sure. Okay. So how has this first, I don't know, what we're looking at, three weeks, give or take, since then, like, what has it been like to kind of come on board, and what have the priorities been? One of the big things is that everybody's seen is the Twitter account, which you have some things to say about, but maybe before we get to that, like what else has been priorities, either mundane or momentous, I guess?
Well, for the National Party, a big one's been ballot access. So there's a lot of ballot access controversies in various parts of the state. Some states are fighting legal battles against, the state regime within their own territory to gain access to the ballots. There's some funding that has to happen. There's some kind of paralegal assistance that I know Angela and Karen Ann have helped with. The executive committee discussed this on one call, I think last week or 2 weeks ago. Angela is in the works of implementing her strategic plan, which she campaigned on. So she's been working on kind of candidate support, messaging, all sorts of different things. But what we voted on has mostly been like resolutions and kind of some kind of internal party things to make things run smoother. We do have our first in-person LNC meeting in Washington, D.C. next month. And we have usually 3 to 4 of those historically on the LNC, 3 to 4 weekends where we do meet in person, have an agenda, get business done there. So that will be eventful. I'm really interested to see the treasurer's report specifically and how much money the party has raised since the convention.
Do you have any handle on that you feel comfortable talking about? Be as general or as specific as you feel comfortable, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to be general because I don't know all the nitty gritty, but I've heard the party's made at least $400,000 since the convention. Now I know that some money was owed to it. I think a line of credit was taken out on the headquarters, but I look to be positively encouraged by the numbers, but I've heard it might be more than 400,000, though some of it has to be paid back.
Yeah. So as far as ballot access, that's another sort of thing that I heard some critics of the Mises caucus and some of our candidates is, and I don't know where they got this, and I'm not like being facetious here. Like, I really don't know, that somehow we wouldn't be concerned with ballot access. And, that is a tough issue. It takes a lot of time and money, but like, it is very important. So like, what's the attitude and the sort of operational, hey, this is how we're going to treat ballot access on the new LNC?
Well, it's been a high priority, and I think the reason why that exists, that criticism, is because many of us in the Mises caucus that were involved in the caucus has said that, that's not our only priority. That's not to say it's important by any stretch, but we favor a multi-pronged strategy that includes messaging campaigns, candidate support, non-compliance, nullification, single issue coalitions, in addition to ballot access. So, relatively, someone could take that and be like, oh, they don't like it as much, but we do. Angela's prioritized it week one, and it's certainly important now. Many states are dealing with different dynamics in their particular states. So the National Party does have to make some tough choices as to where to allocate money for those fights and specific candidates and stuff like that. So it is important, but there are tough decisions we have financial constraints around too.
Yeah. And I think the one thing, I've been involved in the LP for 12, 13 years now, since 2010. And I was Central Committee chair in Ohio for like 2010 to 2015 ish. And we had a huge ballot access lawsuit and just a wild time with the Republican Party attacking us in Ohio. So I know, and there's still, the law that got passed then is still really hamstringing the party in Ohio. But one thing that previous LNCs and LNC chairs have prided themselves on is, when we've gotten our presidential candidate on the ballot in all 50 states. And so I think we did that with Gary at least the second time, and I think the first time too. And sometimes that had to be, as like in Ohio, we got him on as a nonpartisan candidate because it was basically impossible to get the Libertarian line on there. But we got him on in all 50 states, and there's something psychologically good about that. And just like, hey, it seems like a basic competence type thing. But the question is, and again, I'm speaking only for myself, not for you or Angela or anybody else. Like, I've always thought that, let's say to get our guys on the ballot in 48 states cost X, and to get them on in 50 states cost X plus $1 million. Like, you got opportunity cost here, right? So like, I think that there are some decisions to be made of but because the regime can say, oh, well, their budget's X, let's just make it hard to get them on the ballot, and that'll exhaust their time and money every 4 years, and they'll be on the hamster wheel. So I think to always play that game and to have that always be the number one backbreaking priority doesn't seem like, again, if we're a challenger, we got to be nimble and not, run into the trap that they're setting for us. So.
Totally. I mean, my aim is to get the party to be so in people's minds and so well connected with the average person that the states just can't say you can't be on the ballot anymore. That the momentum we have, the members we have, the numbers we have will make it impossible. But until then, we have to fight that fight. Georgia in my region is fighting a big lawsuit on it right now. So yeah, it's an ever-present fight in our atmosphere.
And also with like the debates, like the same sort of logic applies. It's like, and I'm not criticizing, people who have done lawsuits and protests to try to get, the presidential candidate, or, in Ohio, my buddy Travis Irvine in 2018 tried really hard to get included in the debates. So we should do that. But like, ultimately the goal would be to have a party and a movement popular enough that we don't have to ask, but that they invite our people, like they can't avoid it. That's where we need to go.
Right on. We're already making headway on Timcast. Angela's going to be on that on Monday. Dave's been on that. Heiss has been on that. Joe Rogan. Dave's been on that numerous times. So we're making headway there. The old cable news kind of landscape is fading away to some extent. We can really take advantage of it. Not to all demographics. A lot of old people don't really get into it as much, but with up and comers, like there may be a time where like people just don't even watch cable news anymore. So
right. Yeah. And I think that you're right that again, I think the previous LNCs kind of it has been to some extent a generational thing. Now, some of the bigger names that are antagonists, shall we say, are of that generation, but a lot of them still just, I think, just temperamentally think that, oh, well, we have to behave like politicians from the 1980s and be respectable and put out press releases and get on, try to get coverage from the Washington Bleep or the New York Times. And, they're kind of playing a game that's 30 years old and rigged against us. But now, and I even struggle to kind of keep up with some of it. Like, I think I was the last person in the world to figure out who Tim Pool was. But the fact that we have Twitter and other means of getting into that space is, I think, just amazingly awesome and a thing that we really need to exploit. And I'm glad that I want you to talk about your role in that, because right away, I was kind of sick. I had the Reno flu or whatever it was. Yeah. And I was on Twitter the couple of days after I got back, and I was like, holy crap, they're already, they got it. We got our guys in there. So I was just, I'm so happy about that. So what was that like, getting the keys to the Twitter, and who are you working with, and what is your strategy and how is it working?
Yeah, it's been surreal. It's been a total treat. I found out about that by a text someone else sent me, said, hey, take a look at the business list, what was just posted. And Angela had decided to set up a special committee for communications that put myself and Dave Smith on the LP National Twitter. And I was just elated, but kind of surprised, because I had told Angela I was interested in this. She knew that I had worked on LPTN's Twitter with another friend that does an amazing job. Check out LPTN 1776. They're awesome. But I had told her that, but I was surprised that she picked me and Dave to do it. It's been great working with him. We have a more radical approach to the messaging, really gets to the heart of our platform and the biggest issues that are affecting Americans' lives. Like right now, war and inflation are our bread and butter. Guns were big on the kind of news cycle for a while, so we hit that hard. We've been just doing a more radical, bold messaging that we kind of promised when we were campaigning, and it's here. It's been fun to do some tweet responses to Biden and things like that. It's been a trip, man. It's been fun. I just hope that I can stay on this committee. I know that there's going to be some sea change. There's a new communications director that will kind of be hired probably within the next few months. And I'm just hoping that I can stay on the committee. So if you like the work done on the Twitter, tell Angela, tell the rest of the LNC if you would.
Yeah, I definitely do. And so what has been, and it's, I don't want to get into the weeds on this, but there are other people who are still able to tweet, I think. Is that correct? Are you guys the only people who are tweeting?
I think that so since we did it, I think the communications director has tweeted once or twice, but most of it has been me and Dave Smith. And yeah, that I think 95% of the tweets have been me or Dave Smith.
Because there have been a couple that was it's not like horrible tweets, but I'm like, that doesn't sound like either of the Daves to me. So yeah, so you guys are doing that. What has been has the the metrics has that changed? Have we had any new or significant interactions with big accounts? What have been some of the highlights?
Oh, totally. I'll just actually flick over there right now, but I'll tell you that since we took it over on 6/2, there have been about, I think, 11,000 new followers, which is huge. And the kind of interaction rate. So I think basically the analytics that show impressions were up at one point about 400%. So I can divulge that, but we'll have a full report at the next LNC meeting next month where I can get kind of full 28-day reports since we took it over and stuff to present.
Okay.
But things look really good. The the kind of momentum has been great. We've gotten a lot of feedback that's been good mostly. So
what's the total likes or followers or whatever on Twitter right now about?
it's like 242.6 last time I checked. That's
okay.
So,
But so 11,000 in 2 weeks is not bad.
It's not bad. If we can do 10%, like if we can increase the follows by 10% in 1 month, I think that's great. So,
So have we, you mentioned responding to, quote tweets toward the Biden administration, which that's talk about, fastballs right down the middle. I mean, oh man, that account is it's just so, oh my goodness. So have there been any others that like, hey, we might be, it's kind of weird how things work on Twitter that sometimes you end up talking to or interacting with, somebody like Elon Musk or, Rand Paul, whoever, like, has there been any like, oh, wow, that person, tweeted us or like, have there been anything like that, that was like a concrete example of like, oh, we are maybe making inroads into making more of a noise in the sort of alternative media space?
Oh, totally. And some of them are kind of in our libertarian atmosphere, but Phil Labonte from All That Remains and Eric July and Tom Woods has been retweeting us, and a lot of kind of the big figures that, weren't big fans of the previous leadership messaging has been incredible in their support for us, which is amazing. Scott Horton as well. So it's getting out there. We hope to get more. Like, would love to kind of see, people like Glenn Greenwald or Matt Taibbi do sort of stuff like that. Jimmy Dore. That would be great.
Wait a second. I thought we were alt-right, Dave. I thought we did.
Well, if we are, more of the tweets are condemning, Republicans than Democrats right now. So if you look at the timeline, but
I know that's just so bizarre that kind of, that narrative is like the most brain dead, repeat what some hater says and just keep printing it. Like, if anything, like we're a funnel away from the alt-right, like, cause like we criticize everything that Trump does basically, except for being an insult comic, which is kind of funny. But like, I think that a lot of people who are kind of disaffected with this version of the regime, like to hear an anti-war, anti-Federal Reserve, pro, we need to, common sense machine gun legalization and not, oh, let's do gun safety. Like, we're bringing people from the right and hopefully from the left. Like, again, our message should be those people who can think for themselves on either side. And, occasionally I'm sure we're going to interact with some nut jobs on either side of things, but we can take care of them and either get them straightened out or, push them off on the ice flow. But like, I really do see like somebody like Tim Pool is a very interesting guy. And I think that's showing that even the whole dichotomy that I just spent a minute talking about, it is kind of breaking down. And I think that if we are truly libertarian, like, then I think we're really going to thrive in this space. I just don't see any other way but up, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's not exciting to repeat talking points from the Democrats and Republicans on a national stage from a national account. So we're doing our best to really define ourselves and brand ourselves the way that Harry Brown and Ron Paul would be proud of, and that Dave Smith and Spike Cohen speak to today. So
that's and I'm really excited, and I really hope to. I'm excited at what Maj Toure is doing. That again on social media, we can get to people and communities and demographics that I think the LP hasn't really gone after, and I really think that I see a lot of potential, and not just through Twitter, but like, again, we have to be, to kind of get back to one thing we were talking about earlier and kind of a little bit to respond to what I think Justin Amash was getting at in his talk. And I think that approach in the LP has been, we want to be as respectable to as many people as possible and appeal to as many people as possible. But like basic logic and like sales or marketing or whatever, it's like you got to go after your warm targets first. So like small L libertarians, you know, if there's 100 million voters, you don't try to convince all 100 million. You know, if there's 1 million libertarians, let's get the other million that's closest to us first and then start building something. And so I think that you can't if you try the other way, again, I like Justin Amash's voting record is great, but like, it seems to me that way. And I'm not asking you to agree to criticize him, but like that approach basically leads you to, oh, you got to bake the cake because there's no other way. If you want to not offend people, you're gonna find yourself in those types of situations making the wrong choice.
Yeah. Love Amash. He has a different messaging approach than maybe we do, but we need all perspectives in the party. One of the best voting records of any congressman in my lifetime. So nothing bad to be said about him. Our messaging approach would probably be a little bit different than his, but man, I love having him in the party. He reaches out to a lot of people that we could use too.
Let's talk a little bit more about sort of LNC priorities and dynamics. And so we talked some about ballot access. I know candidate support is always a topic of debate as far as, you know, do we go after governors or do we go after dog catcher? And so what is the thinking? What's worked in the past and what does this LNC, what do you think you guys will be trying in that space?
Well, a lot of people have different opinions on this issue, right? But I mostly align with what Heiss said in that recent interview, where we go after city council, county commissioners, constables, very low-level candidates that can kind of put into our vision into fruition, like our nullification and decentralization vision, to push back against the egregious and immoral mandates from the federal government. Now, that's not to say never run for Senate or, you know, House and things like that, but we have to prioritize those elections, which are much more winnable, much less likely to be partisan, much more likely to be on the ground, able to win. And then from there up to the president, because the president is essentially the biggest mouthpiece of the party. So we want someone that, you know, tells our messaging, gives it unapologetically, no holds, no barred, and really actually gets people interested in this the way that Ron Paul did, because he opened, a lot of people didn't know about the Federal Reserve or Austrian economics or blowback or any of that, but he awakened like a whole new class of people that had an aha moment. And that's what we want from the president. So to me, I would emphasize very local level elections and the president. If we're in a different position where, hey, we're, you know, the third biggest political party, but we're just like a hair less than Democrats and Republicans, then I would absolutely, you know, switch our approach. But right now, I think that's the best priority.
Talk about it's called the Frontier Project, right?
Yeah.
What is that and where do you see that going?
I don't know too much about the Frontier Project other than that it's an organization based in Wyoming to, is it Wyoming? I think so. I
always get Wyoming and Montana mixed up, which is so horrible, but it's one of those two, I think.
Yeah, I think it's Wyoming. And I don't know enough about it, but I know it's intricately tied to the state party of Wyoming. And there's some things I don't really know about it that I would like to learn, because it doesn't seem like there's an easy ability to join that party. So I'm not sure exactly how it connects. I know that the previous leadership gave them a lot of money, but I don't know enough about it to have like a very definitive opinion either way on what they do or how they do it.
Okay. So I think it is a creation of the LNC, right?
I'm sorry that I don't know that answer.
Okay. I'll look.
I know that some previous LNC members were either on the board or high ranking members though, but I don't.
And I think and I'll post a link on the show notes page. But I think that it's similar maybe to a more local strategy, but kind of going after state house races in Western states where the vote total is fairly low. So I'm interested to see, you know, how the Mises people will interact with, you know, people who have been doing things like that for a while, and seeing, you know, hopefully I would hope that if we have the resources to do, to try different things and then to see what works and tinker with things, because I think that to me, I don't anything that works getting libertarians, good libertarians elected, like again, if it doesn't break the bank or sacrifice another something that's more important, like, hey, I'm fine no matter where the idea came from, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone trying to do the work of electing libertarians at a local level is my friend. I want to work with them. But I think there's equal effort that should be put into like funding single issue coalitions, which I know this caucus is big on. So
Has there been anything and again, it's way early and you haven't had your first big meeting yet, but is there anything on the horizon there, or just like, hey, we're going to look for opportunities in that space?
Yeah, I'll just tell you, there's been a lot of like discussions internally about pushing like an issues management, like coalition leadership into the forefront, whether it be on staff or something like that. There's definitely interest among this board about, really laying down foundations where we can work. One person might be assigned to do gun sanctuary city stuff. One person might be able to be assigned to like right to try type stuff and nullifying the FDA and put that into motion. So it's definitely being discussed. I think you'll hear some good news about that eventually.
What can people do, especially Mises Caucus people and somebody like me, who I kind of have withheld my support from the national LP for, since certain people said certain things, until I was basically giving the minimum so I could be a delegate. And now that those of us who have worked to have this change, or people who maybe haven't come from the Mises Caucus, but are now interested in the LP, like what can they do to make your job on the LNC easier and give you guys more options?
Join the party. It's in good hands now. We fought a long, diligent effort to make sure that it's in good hands. Don't necessarily take your support away from candidates or the caucus, but join the party. It's here for you now. And, if you like what you see, especially on social media and our new messaging, like that's the best thing you can do to help us right now.
How, in addition to joining, and I'll get a link to that up as well. And I think we still have the Mises Caucus link where it's kind of earmarked as, hey, the Mises Caucus sent this person. But talk about again, your experience on, besides joining the national party and interacting on social media, like the role, the importance of being involved in your state. And if you're lucky enough to, where there's a county party, like what can someone expect and what opportunities are there to get involved and to go beyond just, being someone who, cuts a check, so to speak?
Yeah, join the national party, but the local parties are incredibly important too. Each party has their own website, and a lot of times there's information about individual regions, sometimes regional chairs that are there. Reach out to those people, get connected, go to your affiliate or regional meetings, get involved. Your state party will have committees too. And I really believe in division of labor. I think that was one of Ludwig von Mises's best contributions to economics, is spending so much time talking about that and its importance, because, some people are really good at managing the party. Some people are really good candidates. Some people are good messengers. Some people are really good, on the ground, door knocking activists. Get into what you're good at and work and build bridges with people in your party. You can change a lot. You can get behind candidates in your area and really just network with a lot of really great people that are even great outside of politics. Most libertarians are just fantastic people. I can't say that enough.
Right. Most, right. There's one in every crowd.
Two of them might be on this call for all I know.
Yeah, so. Actually, that's funny that I was saying to my wife, who is normal and not really interested in politics, but there's two places where I feel totally comfortable just leaving my laptop at so you and I were sitting next to each other in the Tennessee delegation. And when I had to go talk to somebody or go to the bathroom, I just left my laptop that has my entire life on it right there. And like the church and the Libertarian Party, like those are the two places where I know that I'm not going to get ripped off. And so there is this unspoken bond that even people who come at it from a different way than maybe you or I would have, like we have that in common. And like to find other people with that, like to me, that is a gift to be able to get to know those people and work together. So like, I think that, you know, people may have misconceptions or it might be true, but the more people with a positive attitude who show up in real time, in real spaces at their local and state LPs, just the better the culture is going to get. And we're never going to get anywhere if we don't have a culture where we enjoy working together with people. And I see that improving.
Totally. And there's a lot of libertarians out there that are like, you know, screw national. I want nothing to do with national. And a lot of times I understand them and where they're coming from. So a lot of people will just kind of turn a blinders to national and focus on state. That's fine too. We need activists wherever we can get them. Give me 1,000 lifelong liberty activists over 10,000 meaningless presidential votes any day of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what you have done in the Liberty movement and what you're doing now. Let's talk a little bit about your past and how you got to, you've written at least one other book other than your forthcoming one. Talk about what talents that you have used to get to where you are in the Liberty movement.
Sure. Well, I pride myself on being kind of, you know, an amateur historian. I'm really interested in liberty-oriented history. How I stumbled upon libertarianism was actually through Murray Rothbard's book, A History of Money and Banking in the United States in 2004. I randomly ran across that book during a college research project. And Rothbard was an incredible economist, but he was also an incredible historian. So kind of what I took from Rothbard's works and went down the rabbit hole and kind of got bolstered by Ron Paul and other thinkers of his kind is an interest in political decentralization. So I've contributed content to the 10th Amendment Center, especially on nullification and constitutional issues for almost a decade, and also contributed some content to Mises Institute and some other wheelhouses. So yeah, I've written 3 books. One is more or less a pamphlet, but one is Compact of the Republic, the League of States and the Constitution. That's right over my shoulder there. It's essentially a defense of the decentralized nature of the U.S. Constitution and the U.S. political system in general. And I know a lot of people don't like the Constitution, but I like to at least hinge some of my beliefs on the fact that, hey, we're not meant to be a single homogenous blob that can just impose a central will upon all the states. So I think that's valuable, and there's something to be happy about that. And I do have a forthcoming book coming out around Thanksgiving on Thomas Paine. It's called Thomas Paine, A Lifetime of Radicalism. And I don't know, my editor for it kind of sucks. He really is not doing a very good job, but we're going to try to get that out by Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. The editor is Aaron.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to work with you, and you've said some kind things. But like that's one thing that we kind of hit it off when we first kind of maybe had our first real conversation. Was that, and I'm not an expert, but I've read kind of, especially 20 years ago or so. I went through a phase where I read a lot about the American Revolution, and you know, Paine always stood out to me as kind of unique. I mean, he wasn't rich. He didn't end up being in any administration. He wasn't, he kind of ended up being persona non grata, I think, in America. But yet his impact, like it's really hard to overstate, like, you know, as far as like, you know, metrics as like, you know, how many words somebody wrote and published and how much effect they had. Like his like multiplier effect is like, it's got to be like top 10 or 20 all time, right? As far as politics goes.
Totally.
Just an amazing guy.
Yeah, totally. In Paine's day, there was nothing more taken for granted than, one, there would always be a monarchy that was ruled by a king. There would always be slavery. and religion and politics would always be inextricably intertwined. And Paine, more than almost anyone in the world at that time, did whatever he could to challenge those ideas. And really, he's responsible for laying some of the groundwork to kind of make those ideas incredibly unpopular, to the point that we live in a age that was defined more or less a lot by Paine. And even John Adams, Paine's rival, political rival in many occasions, Adams was not a big fan of Paine's work. He said, no one's wielded more influence over our time than Thomas Paine. And he said begrudgingly, call it then the age of Paine. So I totally agree.
Yeah, that's so what was it about him that made his writing so effective, given that it wasn't from again, somebody with a prestigious name? And what was it? And what can we learn anything from that today?
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad I got this question. It's the absolute irreverence that he used, the irreverent tone in his words. He used a writing style that was called vulgar. It was called vulgarity at the time, but it wasn't vulgar in the sense that we think of, like, swearing or something like that. What vulgarity meant back then was it was a tone used by commoners and tradesmen and people that were not aristocrats. So what Thomas Paine did more effectively than anyone else in world history was take these very high philosophical ideas and boil them down and interpret them to a class that was ready to accept them, but only if they were put in the terms that they could understand. So it was his irreverence and his radical streak that really, changed the dynamics in so many ways, and really took kind of the political development of the world in a different course.
Yeah. So like, I see an obvious parallel to what we were talking about earlier, that you have to be willing to, again, if you want to get engagement in politics, you have to be different. And especially in a society like ours, like that means going against the grain and saying unpopular things that will get you branded with very nasty names. And like, again, that kind of dynamic happened with Paine a lot too. But I also am a huge fan of William Lloyd Garrison, kind of similar in the same way. He stakes out these very radical positions and just is willing to take all the crap that came back at him from that. But yet look what he did by holding to those things and not like negotiating with power and trying to bolster his name, but to stick to the ideas and like, again, the multiplier effect of what he did. I think that's exactly what I think we have to do as libertarians today.
Yeah, I am personally influenced by Paine's messaging, and I try to build it into some of the messaging I do, and I hope it comes across. But I agree, Paine's lessons in terms of messaging are timeless. They didn't die 200 years ago at all.
Yeah. Do you think he would have been banned on Twitter by now?
I think that he would have, if not banned, he would have been suspended a few times, a la Reed Coverdale or something like that.
Yeah, and yeah, it was.
Shout out to him.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to talk about that more, and as I finish reading the whole book, and I'm going to get to read it and know it pretty well before most people. We're definitely going to have you back on to dive into this because there are just all the stuff with France and all that is kind of, again, like there are some things that he does and says that maybe we ANCAPs and Ron Paul types are like, what's going on there? But like, totally, it would be a great movie. I mean, or a mini series or something. So we'll have you back on to talk about that. And I'm really looking forward to that. Who else have you gotten input from other people on this? And again, if you're not ready to talk about that, that's fine. But who has anybody helped you with comments or guidance on this and gotten feedback yet?
Yeah, totally. Tom Woods has blurbed it. Jeff Dice has blurbed it. Brian McClanahan has blurbed it. Marco Bassani has blurbed it. Brad Berzer has blurbed it. And I actually got some really good editorial feedback from Tom Woods. So I'm so ecstatic to have their support. It took over 4 years to make it. Really happy to kind of unleash it, and I'll be happy to see whatever feedback I get from it.
Yeah, we'll do whatever we can to put that out there. But again, I think it is a, I think you can get encouragement as a libertarian from looking at pain, and your book is a good, it's a synthesis of a lot of other people, but it's also kind of got a little different and kind of timely sort of wedge into it that I think we libertarians could really profit from, just from a personal motivation standpoint. So I'm proud of what you've done, and it'll be great to be able to share that with people and tell people, hopefully to get you some downloads and purchases and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, I can't wait. Thank you so much for your role in it. To your audience, I was just kidding. Aaron's doing an amazing job editing this. So
I'm really good at finding other people's mistakes, and I just don't. As long as other people don't turn their eyes on me, I'm fine. But talk about just real quick before I let you go, how people can get a hold of you, what they need to be doing again to maybe hold you accountable, and to just help the momentum that we have with the National LP get that going.
Yeah, try to join your parties if you can. If it's a financial impediment, try to get involved some other way. Please, follow me on Twitter. You see the handle right there on the screen, dbenner83. To reach out to me as an LNC member, especially if you're in Region 2, you have feedback, send me an email to dave.benner@lp.org. Look forward to meeting everyone in person that's on this. And thanks so much for having me, Aaron.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. We'll have all of those links on decentralizedrevolution.com/80. That's /80. And Dave, it's been a pleasure. And you're an hour behind me, so enjoy your late afternoon. You've got a little more of it to enjoy than I do. So we'll be talking soon.
You got it. Always a pleasure, brother. Have a great weekend.
And there you have it. I'd like to thank Dave Benner for his time and wisdom and his willingness to take on that almost thankless job of being a member of the Libertarian National Committee. There's a lot of meetings, a lot of travel involved with that. And so I'm glad we have a quality guy like Dave who has taken on that responsibility. So if you like what Dave is doing with the LNC, you need to support the National Libertarian Party now, especially now that it's in good hands. You could do that at lp.org. And of course, we need you to continue supporting the Mises Caucus as we get back to things like heavy effort on supporting candidates, creating those issues coalitions like we did with Decriminalized Denver. We didn't create that one, but we helped put them over the top. But we want to do more of that, and we want to take the Take Human Action bash on tour to college campuses, college towns, and we are only able to do that when you support us. So go over to takehumanaction.com to do that, and if you're not already, sign up for the email newsletter and all that. Thanks to Dave versus Goliath for all the music you hear on Decentralized Revolution. And thanks to everyone who subscribes to our email list and gives to Mises PAC at takehumanaction.com. And everyone who shares, rates, reviews, and subscribes to Decentralized Revolution. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.